Hey, all right. Hey. So, I am really excited. This right here is the, let me see if I can see what the scent is called. Oxford tea. So this is one of the best candles that I have ever gotten. It smells so good. And I went on the website to look at just kind of what other stuff they have, because it was you know how like when you work somewhere, they'll do like gifts and stuff for the holidays. So it was one of my holiday gifts from the gym that I'm contracted at, and it smells so good. Like, it's made of like all like natural, non-toxic materials, which is super awesome. If you like candles, go to Summit and Terrace, like top of the mountain, like terrace, like, is terrace those things that plants grow on? I think so. No, a terrace is like, yeah, it's that thing that plants grow on. Anyways, Summit and Terrace, and get candles from them. Like, they're the most awesome smelling candles. Like, I made a seafood boil last night, and my whole house smelled like I had tried old apartment, whatever. Smelled like like Dungeness and like shrimp and lobster and stuff, and it was just so nasty. And then yay. I couldn't even get, like, I had tried, like, opening the windows and, like, using the fan to, like, blow the smell out. For some reason, the smell would just not go away. And so I got this awesome candle. Surprise! The universe knows what you need, right? And it totally got rid of all of the seafood boil smell. So I'm hooked, and I'm going to be buying 1,000,000 more of your candles in the future. But anyways, super good. But another reason that candle makes me feel so grateful is this studio is one of my favorite studios that I've ever worked at or contracted at before. It's like all of us come from such different backgrounds, and everyone has their like main thing that they do or whatever, and that's like their secondary. Like the members are so awesome, and like the owner's like super cool, and like all of the other instructors are just like this amazing mismatch of like artists and tech women, and like there's like a lawyer and like a dentalist. It's crazy. It's like everyone is so different and just so amazing, and it really feels like a community, and that's what I've been looking for so long, because I feel like that's one of the things that we're missing in just this kind of society, the way it is, I guess. Like, I don't know. I feel like we all live our little lives compartmentalized, and seeing people from so many different backgrounds, culturally, education-wise, geographically, kind of come together and just really celebrate and encourage each other, and not be afraid to like say something if something is wrong, or if someone needs feedback, or if someone needs help. It's just, I don't know, it's really beautiful, and that's gonna bring me into this new read, The Spirit of Intimacy. I've read this one twice, but it's been at least, oh my gosh, at least, I think 2021 was the last time I read this. Was it 2021? I think so. But it's been a long time. And I know 100% that I'm going to be pronouncing some of these words wrong. So if you know the correct spelling or correct pronunciation of some of the ones that I get wrong, by all means, like, send me like a DM or comment with the phonetic spelling, because I'm not too proud to say that I don't know things. In any case, get some water here, and go ahead and get going. Oh, I'm getting on super late. I think I posted like 7 or something like that I would be starting at 7. But I got caught up making meatballs, and I know they're going to be so good. They're like a 2-to-1 Wagyu to lamb ratio with like all of the yummy like Italian spices. My kids love spaghetti and meatballs, and they're coming back in 2 days. So I'm going to make them the best spaghetti and meatballs that they've ever had in their entire life. It's the little things, right? Alright, so the spirit of intimacy. Ancient African teachings in the ways of relationships by Sobonfu Somé. Past the forward and past the acknowledgements here. But I will read the lead-in. Shake off the wiggles there. Look at this haircut. I'm still navigating having a bob with bangs. That's why I'm wearing the headband here. My bangs are looking absolutely insane right now, and so is my hair a little bit, but that's okay. Move this over just a touch. All right. I don't have this discussion of relationships all laid out, systematized, and so forth. There are all kinds of images that come in and out like stars, little stars. So you're going to have to paste these images together in order to make some sense out of them. But what is important is to look at our understanding of intimacy as primarily a practice ordered by spirit or authorized by spirit and executed by someone who recognizes that she cannot, by herself, make happen what she has been invited toward. Dano, Home to the Old Ways, Chapter 1. The Dagara people are mainly associated with the West African coastal countries of Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Togo. Inland from these countries, at their northern border, is Burkina Faso, formerly referred to as Upper Volta. In 1984, the government of Upper Volta decided that... my feet are kind of cramping up. Hold on. Oh, there we go. My ankles and feet have been cramping up since the workout this morning. In 1984, the government of Upper Volta decided that its colonial name was too troublesome, so they chose a new name, which means the land of the proud ancestors. When, in 1882, a European council sitting in Belgium tried to figure out how to share this big land of Africa, they ended up dividing the Dagara tribe into 3 different nations. There are also a few 100,000 Dagara people in Burkina Faso, another few 100,000 in Ghana, and a smaller number in the Ivory Coast. This division of people occurred as a result of the arbitrary nature of colonial powers who didn't accept tribal communities as nations. Socially or communally, we are not that different from indigenous communities elsewhere. Maybe what should be mentioned is that we don't have the amenities that one has here in the West, such as electricity or running water. We don't live in houses without cockroaches. We're very close to the earth and to nature, and that is the gift that we receive from such a place. In the village, where life is directly inspired by the earth, by the trees, by the hills and rivers, the kind of relationship that exists between man and nature is direct... Got the willies. Why does that always happen when I read online? I get the willies. I'm going to start this paragraph over again. In the village, where life is directly inspired by the earth, by the trees, by the hills and rivers, the kind of relationship that exists between man and nature is directly translated in subtle ways into the building of community and into the building of relationships that exist between people. When asked where they are from, the Dagar people who have lived in Burkina Faso usually say the village of Dano. This is because even though there are many villages in the tribe, Dano is the biggest. But it's nothing like a town by modern standards. It's just a village surrounded by other villages. And it's difficult to know how many people live here, since in Africa, we don't count people. People know one another from village to village, having family and friends in many of these small communities. This comes about through marriage and immigration and through active neighborhood relationships. In Dano, the streets have no names. There is one main street which comes off the road that connects Dano to the main highway and Ouagadougou, the capital city. I probably said that wrong. It's probably around 300 kilometers to Ouagadougou. If you have your own car, you could probably make the drive in 3.5 hours. The road out to the main highway is not paved, and it has lots of big holes and animals and people crossing, so it can take you a long time. Buses travel this road. They stop every 10 miles or so to check in with somebody or drop off somebody, or so it's not steady travel. The thing is, no one seems to be in a hurry. So by bus, it can take you a minimum of 6 hours to a whole day to reach the capital. That is, if you don't have any kind of mechanical breakdown. The land is what you would call a savanna, mostly hilly grassland with few trees taller than 30 feet. The tallest tree is the baobab, which grows really high, about 180 feet. Although it's no longer forest-like, in certain places we do have dense groves of trees such as the shea, which is known for its healing power. The shea tree gives this green, delicious fruit. We eat the fruit and use the nut to make butter. The butter is used by the Dagar people for medicinal purposes, for cooking, and for cosmetics. After you've lived, as I have, in places like Michigan or even Northern California, the weather in Dago no longer seems so cold. But I remember when I lived there, it used to be really cold. I used to think when it dropped into the 70s it was cold. Now that I've lived in a climate where the temperature might drop to 30 degrees or even lower, 70 seems pretty hot. Even though Burkina Faso has 3 relatively large rivers, in the area of Dano there are only seasonal creeks and ponds. These are our sources of drinking water. And we dig wells during the dry season, which starts in November and lasts until mid-June, sometimes July. Then we have to rely only on wells for water to drink. In the driest seasons, you will find the whole village gathered around one well of water, sometimes spending the whole night waiting for the well to fill up. This is because at these times of the year, the water comes at certain hours only. Very early in the morning, for example, the water table will be high. Then at noon, it will be at its lowest point. We will have to go at night in order to be there when the water returns. Families with children are served first, together with pregnant women and the elderly. Then everybody else is served last. So even if you have been waiting during the night, if a family with children arrives, they will be served before you. You would call our economy agricultural, perhaps subsistence farming. We produce the food we need to live. We have not done any exporting, even though in recent years the government has been trying to get us to do so. That, to us, is a foreign concept that we have yet to learn to deal with because we grow exactly what we need and no more. Our main way of trading is to barter, although in the village we also use cowrie shells for money as well as for divination and healing. These little white shells were brought by the Dagara people from Ghana a long time ago when the tribe used to live closer to the sea. Cowrie shells are used sort of like gold has been used here. All the French-speaking countries in West Africa, Burkina Faso, the Ivory Coast, Senegal, and so forth, also use a regular kind of money called CFA. To get that money, of course, you have to sell things. And if you don't have something to sell, then you basically live without it. You have to stay with the old ways of bartering. The two systems of trade exist side by side. We grow many things. For example, there are 3 different kinds of millet. One of them is called sorghum in the West. We have red and white sorghum. And we have another kind of millet, which is called I don't even know these letters. What did I call this when I was reading it before? Probably Zie in Dagara. We have red beans, black-eyed peas, peanuts, and we have big African yams. Not the regular yams like you have here, but yams up to 3 feet long, weighing 20, 30 pounds. And then we have sweet potatoes, 2 different kinds. We raise animals also, chickens, guinea hens, pigs, goats, and lambs. They are raised not only for food, but also for trade. For example, if I have a goat and I need millet, we might negotiate a fair amount of grain for me to receive in return for my goat. We hunt wild animals, but now we mainly see hunting in context of ritual, such as initiation. It's not like in the old days when the whole tribe would take 1 or 2 months and go hunting and then come back home with meat to live on for the year. This has changed only in the past 10 years or so because of political restrictions. Basically, the government is trying to claim the land. Until the 1980s, the land had always been the land of the people. Still, people did not consider it their own. They saw it as spirit, as something that they were just borrowing. Now that the government is regulating the land, you have to pay taxes on it. During colonial times, many things changed in the Dagara people's lives, but matters such as family structure and the way people approach leadership remain much the same. Those who have gone to school in the cities are absolutely affected. They see things completely differently, but most of the villages I know still have the ways they used to, with an almost medieval way of leadership. There isn't one chief who is in charge of everything, who gives directions that everybody has to follow. We still have a system where elders oversee the village, without a sense of acquiring wealth and power. Power, you see, is understood in the village as very dangerous if not used correctly. So everybody is very cautious about using any kind of power over others. Tribal people are starting to experience immense cultural pressures because of the exodus of rural youth to the cities and their exposure to mass media. Slowly but surely, we are seeing with pain a gradual reduction of the village population and the import of all these new ideas pertaining to romance and privacy. This is what happens when young people go to the city and then come back. In Africa, at least in the Tagara villages, buildings are mainly there for sleeping, for ritual space, and for storing food. But the actual life of the village is outside. You wouldn't have any particular place where you would go and change a diaper, for instance. It would happen right outside. You would bathe at the river and dress and groom yourself outside. You would go to the bathroom outside and use leaves from the nearby tree. Talk about cultural conflict for those who despise the old ways. In tribal life, one is forced to slow down, to experience the now and commune with the earth and nature. Patience is a must. No one seems to understand the meaning of hurry up. In the village, we have what we refer to as elders. They are the ones who make the decisions of the village. When there is some pressing situation, the elders will get together and try to figure out what should be done. We do not have police or anything like that. We rely mainly on spirit and on the elders for justice. Among the elders, there is a council of 10 that takes care of the rituals and other village concerns. They're a sort of committee within the larger group of elders. What you have to understand is that elders are not attracted to being part of the council because it involves a lot of work. You work for the whole community, and you are not like a person in power who decides everything. People can come any time of the day to get you for help. You can be sleeping. Somebody will knock on your door, and then you have to work. You don't have a choice. This council is selected by all those who have gone through the elder initiation. They are selected according to the Tagara understanding of the elemental forces that form the universe. We have 5 different elements: earth, water, mineral, fire, and nature. Each one of these elements is represented on the council by a woman and a man. The council is thus made up of 5 female and 5 male elders. The element earth is responsible for our groundedness, our sense of identity, and our ability to nurture and to support one another. Water is peace, focus, wisdom, and reconciliation. Mineral helps us to remember our purpose and gives us the means to communicate and to make sense out of what others are saying. Fire is about dreaming, keeping our connection to the self and to the ancestors, and keeping our visions alive. Nature helps us to be our true self, to go through major changes and life-threatening situations. It brings magic and laughter. When a member of the Council of Elders dies and they need, for example, a new water female, all the initiated elders gather to select a new water female for the council. Actually, you have to lobby a lot in order to find another elder, because this is not a 9-to-5 job where you can let yourself be content with things, and because of the delicate nature of the job. The family in Africa is always extended. You would never refer to your cousin as cousin because that would be an insult. So your cousins are your sisters and brothers. Your nieces are your children. Your uncles are your fathers. Your aunts are your mothers. Your sister's husband is your husband, and your brother's wife is your wife. Children are also encouraged to call other people outside the family members, or outside the family, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers. So I love this concept here. I always loved how I've seen it in like the Filipino community as well, how they call so many people auntie, like they call the older ladies auntie, even if they're not related. But it is very strong in the African and even Black American communities. You know, how people refer to each other as sis, or even people who are friends refer to each other as like, that's my cousin, whatever, oh, that's my mom. Like, I have so many moms that aren't my actual mother because they're that same kind of caring influence. And I just feel like it's so beautiful to create that, to have that familial bond with someone that even you aren't related to by blood, you know? It, as someone who doesn't have parents anymore, doesn't have a sister anymore, being able to call someone that's a good friend sis, it feels nice. It feels like home. But anyways, let's continue on. In the village, extended families live in the same compound. The women sleep on one side of the house and the men on the other. The children are allowed to sleep wherever they feel like. They are not restricted until they reach adolescence. They can sleep with the women today, move to the men's quarters tomorrow, or sleep with their grandfather or grandmother, and so on. The concept of the big family is really helpful. I remember when I was a kid, I had the choice of a different father every day, depending on my mood. So if I wanted one of my uncles to be my father for the day, I would focus all my attention on that person and ignore the others. And the others wouldn't take it personally because they saw it as an opportunity for me to decide what I wanted. This also allows a large number of people in the village to acknowledge the child and to see his or her spirit. So beautiful. I really like that. Just even the help with child rearing. I was a stay-at-home mom for the first 3 years, 14, 15. Yeah, first 3 years of my daughter's life. And the amount of tasks for one person to take on, because, you know, I'm from California and moved up here to Washington, were insane. I didn't have anyone to help, right? My husband didn't, ex-husband didn't help. It was literally just me taking care of the kids, doing the budgeting, the scheduling, the cooking, the grocery shopping, the cleaning, and the appointments, the entertainment, like literally everything. I swear that dude had a really good life. Because he didn't have to do shit except go to work and then lie and say he went to the gym after work. But if I would have been able to live in close proximity to family or community, it would have made that a lot easier. And, you know, I spent a lot of time, especially in the early years of having kids, on Reddit, right? Trying to figure out why this seemed so hard if other people were able to do it. And a lot of the moms there expressed the same sentiment. Like, as a stay-at-home mom, we worked for 24 hours a day. And if we could have had 2 3 more hours. We would have worked for 27 or 28 because something was already always left undone. And that sense of community, I feel, is so helpful in child rearing, and it's why a lot of us as moms are completely stressed out. We're supposed to be the ones that do it all, even with working moms, you know? It's like when I became a single mom and went back to work, school and then work, honestly, it was easier than being a stay-at-home mom because I didn't have to take care of that third child. And you get, as a single mom, there are certain, I hate to say perks, but there are certain perks like childcare subsidies that you're able to take advantage of. Like my husband, former husband, I say that because I'm back in that place talking about it. He was my husband at the time, but he wouldn't pay for daycare, wouldn't work extra hours for childcare so I could take a class, so that I could do anything that I wanted to do to have a break or enrich myself as a person. It was literally me with 2 kids on my tits all the time. At the grocery store, at the park. But, you know, you also, when you come into community with other single parents through like the website Mom Abode, or through meeting other mothers through school, you get to do things like kid exchanges, like, oh, I'll take the kids out to the park for a few hours so that you can do this or do that. Within my former marriage, I wasn't even able to make friends, wasn't allowed, so to speak, wasn't allowed to have a car. There was never any type of give and take. So anyways, my soapbox there for a moment. Everything's better now, hey. But that community and being able to build community is fantastic. And I feel like not having that is what causes a lot of mom burnout. You know, generational housing is another thing that I find very important. But let's continue on to chapter 2. Chapter 2, A Song of Spirit. Intimacy in general terms is a song of spirit, inviting 2 people to come and share their spirit together. It is a song that no one can resist. We hear it while awake or sleeping, in community or alone. We cannot ignore it. There is a spiritual dimension to every relationship, no matter what its origins, whether it's acknowledged as spiritual or not. 2 people come together because Spirit wants them together. What is important now is to look at the relationship as Spirit-driven instead of driven by the individual. So just a side note, from the lead-in in the book here, said that you'll have to piece everything together. This is wonderful, like little streams of consciousness, little ideas that are out together. And they all have these awesome little dividers there to go from kind of one subject to the other. So I'll try and get a little pause in there to indicate a secondary or an additional thought or an additional stream of consciousness. But I love this sentiment here. There is a spiritual dimension to every relationship, no matter what its origins, whether it is acknowledged as spiritual or not. Two people come together because spirit wants them together. What is important now is to look at the relationship as spirit-driven instead of driven by the individual. And that is something that I feel is so important that I like to kind of carry into my consciousness. I spoke about the invisible string or red string theory with the reading of The Alchemist with Santiago and Fatima, but I truly believe that there are people that are just supposed to meet for whatever reason. There have been so many friends, acquaintances, people that I've worked with that when I meet them, my heart feels like home, you know? And whether they're supposed to be in your life for a season or a lifetime, that person was brought to you by Spirit, God, or the universe in order to learn and grow, to fill a particular need, to help you through a difficult time, or for you to do the same things for them. And I feel that those are some of the most beautiful partnerships. And I feel if we stick to that, rather than try and force things because of selfishness or gain in some way, we would all be a lot happier. A lot of like the New Agers on social, they refer to them as like soul family, and I 100% believe in that. Yeah, soul family. What else do people say? Oh, their tribe. Or kingdom spouse is actually a new one that I've heard recently. It's supposed to be a relationship that's ordained by, God, or that red string connection. Divine partnership, that's another one I've heard lately. There's so many. Definitely look some of those up if if you've ever met someone that when you see them or talk to them for the first time, it just clicks. You know what I mean? The role of spirit in our relationships is to be the driver, to monitor our relationships for the good. Its purpose is to help us to be better people, to bind us in such a way that we maintain our connection, not only with ourselves, but also with the great beyond. Spirit helps us fulfill our own life purpose and maintain our sanity. That balance, right? When indigenous people talk about spirit, they are basically referring to the life force in everything. For instance, you might refer to the spirit in an animal, that is, the life force in that animal, which can help us accomplish our life purpose and maintain our connection to the spirit world. The spirit of the human being is the same way. In our tradition, each of us is seen as a spirit who has taken the form of a human in order to carry out a purpose. Spirit is the energy that helps us connect, that helps us see beyond our racially limited parameters, and also helps us in ritual and in connecting with the ancestors. Ancestors are also referred to as spirits. The spirit of an ancestor has the capacity to see not only into the invisible spirit world, but also into this world, and it serves as our eyes on both sides. It is this power of ancestors that will help us direct our lives and avoid falling into huge ditches. Ancestor spirits can see future, past, and present. They can see inside of us and outside of us. They can see cross-dimensionally, and they're lucky not to have physical bodies as we do, because without the limitation of the body, they have the fluidity of an eye that sees many different ways, many different directions. There are many different spirits in Africa, and each of them has a particular role to play, or something they can assist us with. There is the spirit of earth, which is responsible for our identity, our comfort, our nourishment, and so on. And there's the spirit of nature, the spirit of the river, the spirit of the mountains. There is the spirit of the animals, of the water, the spirit of the ancestors. Spirit is everywhere. Spirit is everywhere. God is in every and all things. I love that. This world of spirit involves and affects absolutely everyone in the world. Without spirit, we would have never made it here. Without spirit, it would be really hard to know whether we were going to wake up tomorrow and be alive. It would be really hard to know we have life. People in the West can begin to strengthen their intimate relationships by maintaining their connection with spirit through prayers, through walking in nature and dealing with natural forces, through connecting with the earth, the mineral, the fire, or the mountains, by spending time in nature and taking time away from the mundane day-to-day way of living. We allow the part of ourselves that can hear natural beings to listen so that we can find our connection to those spirits. It is very easy for us to get lost in the mundane world and forget about our connection to spirit. Yet without that connection, we are basically the walking dead. We can also strengthen our connection to spirit through ritual. Various rituals help us to heal particular wounds and open us to spirit's call. Do you ever feel like there's a thought or an idea or a connection that's being drawn in the back of your head, but you're not quite sure what it is? I feel the wheels turning. I don't know what that connection is yet. Buzzwords come up: corporate, replacement, blasphemy. That's a big one. So funny. I don't know. Therapy, escapism. I might have to journal on that later. When we talk about connecting with the spirits of ancestors, many people assume that we refer to our own direct ancestors. But this is difficult. Many of us don't even know our grandfathers. There is such a thing as the pool of ancestors. It doesn't have to be a person or spirit we know or can imagine. It can be a tree out there. It can be the cows out there, your dog or cat at home, your great-great-grandfather who died many generations ago may have joined a great ensemble of spirits to the point where you can't even identify him. He's probably the creek running down over there. So what is important is to realize that any person who has lost the physical body is a potential ancestor. And by simply expressing your longing for the support of ancestors, you will attract a lot of spirits. When you start a ritual where you need their support, if you address them simply as spirits or ancestors, maybe even say, the ones who I know and the ones who I don't know, and those who know me more than I do myself. You are tapping the ancestral power out there, and you are not beginning with confusion, excuse me, as to whether in the pool of ancestors there is a spirit out there that you can identify with. We might think that the confusion we experience in our daily life happens in isolation, but in reality, it has something to do with our lack of connection to our ancestors. The idea of healing our ancestors can be helpful in this context. For the Tagara people, grief is a way for us to bridge the gap between ourselves and our ancestors. A grieving ritual can release the anger and sadness over a dead relative and carry his spirit to the land of the ancestors, where it can be of use to us. And through a regular feeding of our ancestors, we can renew our ties with them. In a relationship, there is a natural tendency for the spirits within two people to come together. When two spirits can commune and really share at the deepest level without having the mind interfere, the two people are bonded in a very strong, sincere, and loving way. When spirit is taken away, then we let our ego take care of relationship problems or simply overshadow them in order for us to feel good. As a result, we may think that we are in control of ourselves and our relationships, but in fact we are not, as we are bound to find out when things start to fall apart. I really like that. Later on in the book, it gets a little further into some of the rituals or the rekindling of relationships. It's so romantic and so beautiful. It's like one of my hopes is to truly build stronger bonds with those around me, those which I've already met and those which I have yet to meet, where we celebrate and actively pray over our relationships, feed in, keep spirit or God or universe or whomever at the forefront. Because when you love someone enough to pray for them, to pray over them, and for their well-being, to me, that's a relationship that's rooted in true selflessness and reverence for that other living being through spirit. Continuing on. Once an intimate relationship is taken out of its spiritual context, it faces many dangers. A deep disconnection is created not only on the spiritual plane, but also at the personal level. People involved in a solely sexual relationship, for instance, carry within themselves a huge energetic hole from early childhood wounds that completely cuts them off from their true selves. Their hope is that the person with whom they are involved might give them the connection they crave. More often than not, the person they are reaching out to does not have a connection to the self either. And so you have two people who are disconnected at both the spiritual and the personal level. The relationship doesn't have any kind of grounding force or foundation to hold it. So this is so wild. Oh my gosh, I have so many stories and so many side notes for this book. It is truly a blessing to be able to pick this up after so long, after a few years of like spiritual and emotional evolution, you know, therapy, breaking traumas, and actively working towards growing into a more emotionally mature person. So I was having this conversation with this person that I know, and they expressed to me that they wished that they were able to just kind of go out and hook up with anybody, right? That it's something that they were just not able to do. And as someone who has spent a lot of time enjoying many fruits on many different trees, I said, well, you know, it's not really a bad thing, you know? It's not a bad thing to just want to care about someone before you're intimate with them. I don't know why you want to get rid of that, you know, regardless of the feel-good hormones that fire off when, you know, you are intimate with a person. Really having that like, care, concern, and spiritual connection is so much more beautiful and so much deeper. And they were like, you know, I get it, but what was their response? I'm not going to go through my text messages and find it. But they were trying to kind of break themselves of this pattern. And I was explaining how it's empty, you know, it's a coping mechanism, or trying to seek self-worth through that. And, you know, they're actually on a good side of the fence, regardless of, you know, how long their dry spells are, right? I'm paraphrasing. But they said, well, I can see how it would be bad when one person develops feelings and the other one doesn't, but this kind of text exchange went on for a little bit, but I just kind of brought this up again. I don't know. That person very much inspired me to head back to my journey of waiting for that spark, romance, and faithfulness in relationships before engaging in that type of activity, which honestly, my soul feels better. Feels a lot better. So, I don't know, maybe something to think about. Am I engaging in sexual activity to fill a hole? Or do I actually care about this person and their well-being? Children in the cities of West Africa are already cut off from the day-to-day life connected to spirit. This is because they live apart from the village. When they go to school, they don't learn about spirit or work on their connection to it. They don't learn about their traditions. They go to schools in order to learn things that aren't spirit-based, to forget about their traditional ways. The first Tagara people who went to study in the cities and felt the influence of the French colonizers came back feeling ashamed about their own parents and the traditional way of life. Some of them remained in the cities and have spent 20 years there without again setting foot in the village. The only time these people turn back to spirit is when their life is on the line. If they're having problems with their job, if somebody is threatening to kill them, if they want to stay in power, if they are sick, then they will seek help from their elders and from the healers. But until then, they're completely disconnected from spirit. And so, you have to always understand the mind of these people who have been to school. There are a few who come out of it still connected with spirit. I see so many. Oh, let's pause, new segment. I see so many romantic relationships in the West being driven by control and ego. To bring these relationships back to health, people must begin to see that spirit is behind their being together and to put control and ego aside. If you are reading this book, I would say that at least you have not completely erased spirit from your existence. It means that there is an ear that is still listening. The spirit is still at work. And for those people who still have this channel to spirit open within them, it is like a magnetic force that pulls them. The first thing to do now is say, I've heard you, spirit. I may not know what to do, but I know that I just heard you. And from then on, start to release the control and the ego that ride in your relationships. Bring spirit from the background, from the dark corner where it has been a useless thing. If the parties involved in a relationship can begin to open themselves up to spirit in this way, what the relationship is supposed to be will evolve. Whether it's a love relationship, a family relationship, or friendship, it will flow from the recognition that spirit, not ego and control, is the first driver. This is not the kind of book that tells you if you had a fight with your husband to go to page 100 or 300 and all shall be fixed thereafter. It's too easy for people to fall prey again to control when they're being spoon-fed with step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. It's very easy to go back to that control place again, instead of recognizing that our relationships are spirit-based. What we need to say is, okay, spirit, I finally heard you. Now what is the next step? Separation from spirit, as we see here in the West, causes a great emphasis on romantic love. It creates a vortex of longing for another person, for another way of connecting. Yet, romantic love is only a way of finding that other connection, which is to spirit, that we are actually looking for. That is wild. That is wild. I make so many notes in books. Especially ones that I haven't read in a while. The coming together of two spirits gives birth to a new spirit. You can call it the spirit of the relationship or the spirit of intimacy. it is very important because it acts as a barometer of the relationship, and it must be nurtured and kept alive. If the spirit dies, then the relationship dies. Rituals are done in the village with respect to that spirit. There is a ritual done once a year in order to amend whatever has happened to this spirit, to bring it back to life if there has been a disconnection. I like to call this ritual the bringing of two souls together. People in the West may not like this, but it is done through sacrifice. So interesting. I mean, maybe that's similar to the concept of anniversaries, but I feel like in relationships, we're so used to our anniversaries being based on gifts instead of a check-in with ourselves and with God. I wonder what that would be like to actively use anniversaries as a check-in with spirit, a check-in with God, a check-in with feelings, with satisfaction, instead of just taking someone out to dinner or buying them a cake, you know? Like truly making a plan to go forward and make amends for anything that is leading the relationship astray. I really like that. I'm stealing it. We must try not to educate our children away from the spirit so that they don't have to work so hard trying to reconnect when they grow up. When they know they already have spirit, then everything else becomes understood, and it makes life easier for them. This is how to succeed as a parent. Acknowledge that there is a powerful spirit present that should be honored instead of taken away. This is also how to succeed in a relationship. I love it. I love it. I am so thoroughly grateful that I'm getting ready to read this book again, or that I am reading this book again, and grateful that I'm getting to share it. I recommend, this is one of the books that I recommend to everyone that I know, and that was the end of chapter 2. I guess we'll start chapter 3 tomorrow night. It's Sunday, and Christmas Eve, I guess. It's tomorrow it's the 24th. I'm not a huge December 25th person, so I will be here reading at, let's make it kind of late night because I don't have anything to do on Monday until like 10. So let's do 10 o'clock tomorrow. So 10 o'clock PST, I'll be picking up with chapter 3. Chapter 3 in the Spirit of Intimacy is entitled The Embrace of Community. I am super excited to get into this next chapter. I have so many things that I want to think about, and also so many new practices or qualifications or ideas about how relationships should be. You know, it's funny when you're reading something for the third plus time with new eyes and new understanding, everything just clicks a little bit differently. So hopefully, if this is your first time with the spirit of intimacy, you will get to read it as you learn and grow again. But in any case, I love this. I love this. I'm truly grateful. One of the things that I have been contemplating lately is, you know, I'm for a very long time have been one of those people that only turns to spirit or only turns to God when I'm having a hard time, and just kind of letting it fall off when everything's good. But that is one of the major pieces I've been missing, is carrying that spirit of gratitude, thankfulness, and God with me wherever I go. Ancestral reverence, prayer. I have been in prayer and meditation a lot more than I have been in the past. Because of some of the people that I've met recently. You know, when you meet someone that truly has like the light and love of the world inside of it, even if you just get little glimpses of that every so often, it's just so beautiful and inspiring. So I hope that each and every one of you gets to see that God in someone, or be inspired to take yourself back to your, you know, meditation cushion, or light a candle, or pray for someone you love, or get on your knees in gratitude for the things that have happened. In any case, I'm just going to keep on rambling because my heart is truly full right now. So I'll see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. PST to continue the spirit of intimacy. I love you. I wish you a great night and a happy holiday if you celebrate. And I will catch you tomorrow. Much love.